Hi, my name is Luna, and I never imagined that my 23rd birthday would be the day my world turned upside down. I was halfway through my morning shift at Ember Cafe in downtown Portland when it happened. I'd just handed a regular his cappuccino when my phone buzzed with a message from my mom. I smiled, hoping maybe, just maybe, this year would be different. Maybe she remembered. Maybe she sent a happy birthday or even a silly meme. But the message read, "Sold your tablet. Ivy needs a new one for her summer art program." That was it. No happy birthday. No love you. Just a statement. Cold and casual. Like I had no say in what was mine. My stomach twisted. That tablet wasn't just any device, it was the one thing I'd saved up for after working 2 part-time jobs and sacrificing every weekend for a year. It held my final semester portfolio, my internship sketches, my dream in digital form. I tried to breathe, to not spiral right there behind the espresso machine. I replied, "What? That was mine. You had no right." The next message came in like a slap. Also, Ivy's tuition is due Friday. See. Lambe. Figure it out. Figure it out. I blinked at the screen in disbelief. Was this real? When I texted back, "I can't." My phone buzzed almost instantly. "Then don't come home. If you won't help this family, don't expect to be part of it." That was the moment I knew I was done being the one who gave everything and received nothing. I wiped my hands on my apron, thanked my manager for understanding when I left early, and walked out into the gray Portland drizzle, not just from my job, but from the version of my life I thought I had. I had no plan, no place to go, just my backpack, my aching heart, and one clear thought: this isn't love. This is control, dressed up as duty. Before I go any further, let me ask you something. Have you ever had to choose between your own future and your family's constant demands? Have you ever been so tired of being the responsible one that you wonder if anyone even sees you? If you've felt that, this story is for you. Because what happened next changed everything, not just for me, but for the story I'd been forced to live in for far too long. And it all started with one birthday and a choice to finally walk away. I ended up at my best friend Shelby's doorstep in Eugene by nightfall. Shelby and I met during orientation week at Oregon State and bonded over our mutual love of vintage bookstores and iced dirty cais. She'd always been my safe place. The one person who never made me feel like I had to earn my worth. When she opened the door, still in her tie-dye sweats and fuzzy socks, she took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. "You didn't even make it through your birthday shift. Did you?" I shook my head, burying my face in her shoulder. That night, I curled up on her pull-out couch with a mug of tea in hand and told her everything. Every petty dismissal, every moment my achievements were overshadowed by Ivy's whims, every dollar I'd quietly handed over because it was just for a little while. Shelby listened, her brows knitting tighter with every detail. "Luna, this isn't just unfair. This is abuse. Financial and emotional. You've been carrying the weight of your family for years." Hearing her say it out loud made it real. I'd always brushed it off, told myself other people had it worse. That being the reliable one was something to be proud of. But somewhere along the way, responsibility had turned into invisibility. I thought back to all the times I was pushed aside, like when I won second place in a national design contest. But my mom skipped the ceremony because Ivy had a big night at her drama club, or when I got accepted into the dean's leadership cohort and was told, "Don't brag. Ivy's been having a hard week," or when my graduation money vanished from my bank account without a word. All these moments stacked like bricks on my chest. "Why didn't you ever say no?" Shelby asked gently. Because I was afraid that if I stopped being useful, I'd stop being loved. That night, I barely slept. My mind raced with questions I'd buried for years, Was I ever really seen? Had I become nothing more than a wallet with a heartbeat? And the worst one, what if I walked away, and no one even tried to stop me? The next morning, as sunlight broke through Shelby's window and birds chirped with casual cruelty, I stared at the ceiling and made a decision. I wasn't going back. Not to their house. Not to their silence. Not to being the backup plan while Ivy was treated like the main character. It was time to stop surviving and start reclaiming. Even if that meant burning a few bridges. Because the truth was, I was tired of swimming in someone else's storm just to keep their boat afloat. And I was ready to build my own. The more I talked things through with Shelby, the more the truth began to sting. This wasn't some one-time incident. It was a pattern one that started long before my tablet was sold behind my back. I remembered when I got into Oregon State with a partial scholarship. My dad barely glanced up from his phone. "That's great," he said. "But Ivy has her dance recital Friday. Can you drive her?" Or the time I was chosen as the lead designer for a campus publication. Mom cut me off mid-sentence to show me a picture Ivy had posted of herself in a new prom dress. Isn't she stunning? I'd laughed it off back then. Shrugged. Told myself, maybe I'm just not flashy. Maybe being overlooked is part of being the responsible kid. But over time, those moments built up like water in a sinking boat. Even my belongings were never truly mine. Ivy borrowed my clothes without asking. My books disappeared and reappeared with torn covers. My first DSLR camera gifted to me by my grandfather was handed to Ivy for a weekend trip and returned with a cracked lens and no apology. The only time my parents acknowledged my hard work was when they needed something. "Can you cover the Wi-Fi bill this month? Ivy needs new point shoes for ballet. Just until next paycheck." Sweetie. Except that paycheck never came. And those loans were never repaid. You've been gaslit into believing this is normal, Shelby said, arms crossed as she sat on the kitchen counter, sipping iced coffee. It's not. You've basically been your family's unpaid intern for 5 years. I laughed. But there was no humor in it. An intern with no benefits and no PTO. We spent the afternoon at her dining table, sketching out everything literally. On paper, I started mapping the last 5 years of my life like it was a case study, how much money I'd given, what events had been ignored. Every moment my own needs were treated like an inconvenience. The pattern was so clear. It hurt to look at, and for the first time, I said it out loud. I think they only see me as valuable when I'm useful. Shelby didn't hesitate. Then maybe it's time to stop being useful and start being seen. That night, I wrote in my journal for the first time in months, just 5 words, I am not the afterthought. I wasn't sure what my next move would be, just that I needed one. Something concrete. Something bold. Because if my family wasn't going to give me the closure I needed, I'd give it to myself. The idea came to me around 3 a.m. Long after Shelby had gone to bed, I sat alone at her dining table, staring at the list we'd made bullet points of years I could never get back. And I thought, if they're going to treat me like a walking credit card, maybe it's time they saw the receipts. The next morning, while sipping burnt diner coffee and watching early commuters rush past the window, I made a decision. I wasn't just going to leave. I was going to leave with evidence. Shelby raised her eyebrows when I told her the plan. You're going back to the house, just once. I said, late. Quiet. I'll pack my things. Gather what I need, and I'll leave something for them too. She gave me that look that said she wanted to stop me but also knew better. I just don't want you to get hurt again. I won't. I said, this time, I'm not walking in as their daughter. I'm walking in as a witness. That night, just after midnight, I pulled up to the suburban home I'd grown up in, only now it felt like a stranger's house. The porch light was off. Only Ivy's bedroom window glowed faintly upstairs. I let myself in with my old key, the weight of the silence pressing hard against my chest. My room was exactly as I'd left it, except the door was ajar. And the light was on. And there was Ivy, standing in front of my mirror, wearing my interview blazer. She jumped when she saw me but quickly recovered. "Oh, you're here. What are you doing in my room?" I asked, my voice steady despite the fire in my throat. "Mom said I could take whatever I needed," she said casually, twirling in the mirror. "You're not coming back." Right, I stared at her, the entitlement in her tone. The way she treated my space like a clearance rack at the mall. "My things aren't up for grabs." "Ivy." She rolled her eyes. "You don't need professional clothes for a coffee shop job?" I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my closet, pulled out my suitcase, and started packing. She watched me from the bed as I gathered my clothes, toiletries, documents, and hard drive backups. It wasn't just about leaving anymore. It was about reclaiming. Before she left the room still wearing my blazer, she turned and asked, "So, are you really not paying my tuition?" I looked her in the eye. No, I never was. And then I bent down, pulled up the loose floorboard beneath my desk, and retrieved the one thing they hadn't touched: my emergency cash fund. Sand. Oh, zero in small bills. Hidden over years. My own quiet rebellion. That night, while they slept, I packed the last of my things and took my power back piece by piece. But I wasn't done yet. I had one last thing to leave behind. I sat cross-legged on the carpet of my childhood bedroom, surrounded by files, receipts, and the quiet hum of my old desk lamp. Outside, the neighborhood slept peacefully, unaware that in one upstairs room, a life was being unstitched and rewritten. From a dusty shoebox hidden beneath a stack of unused sketch pads, I pulled out the records I'd been keeping since I was 16. Bank statements, Cash App receipts, photos of bills with my name circled in red ink, screenshots of Venmo transfers labeled Mom Utilities or Dad Emergency Break Fix. Each page told a story they would no longer be able to deny. I worked for hours, organizing the evidence into labeled sections. 1. Unauthorized withdrawals from my accounts, $8. 347 2. Household expenses. I covered $1. 450 per month. For 3 years. Sen. Loans to my parents that were never repaid, $15. 283 4. Proof that I owned the stolen tablet purchase receipt. Warranty registration. And app usage history. And finally, Section 5, the truth about the college fund. When I turned 18, my parents told me the education trust set up by my late grandfather had been lost in the market crash. I believed them, took out loans, picked up extra shifts. But a month ago, I'd gotten suspicious and requested old records from the bank. What I found made me nauseous. They didn't lose the fund. They spent it on home renovations. Ivy's failed college attempts. Even a cruise, they told me, was a gift from Dad's job. That night, I printed out everything at a 24-hour FedEx. I bought a plastic folder, labeled each section, and sealed it with a note that simply read, "You told me I never gave enough. Here's what I actually gave." I placed the folder in the center of the kitchen table, right where Mom would see it first thing in the morning, before her coffee. On top of it, I left my house key. Then I walked through the living room one last time. The family photos on the wall stared back at me, moments frozen in time. curated smiles that told a story we never truly lived. I paused at the doorway, one hand on the knob, and looked back, not with longing, but with clarity. This house had been my cage for years. But that night, it became my witness. By 4:17 a.m., I was back on the highway, my suitcase in the trunk, Shelby's couch waiting on the other end. The sun hadn't risen yet, but something inside me had. For the first time, I wasn't scared. I was free. When I woke up on Shelby's couch that morning, I knew something had shifted. Not just in my life, but in theirs. At 7:12 a.m., my phone started vibrating on the coffee table like it was possessed. By 7:20, I had 31 missed calls, 42 unread texts, and 3 voicemails, all from one group chat, family. The first text was from Ivy Luna. "What the hell is this? Mom's crying. Dad's losing it. You need to fix this." Then one from Mom, "You're blowing this way out of proportion. That folder is full of misunderstandings." A voicemail followed her voice, wobbly with fury and panic. "Luna, how dare you turn this family into a courtroom? Your father is devastated. Call us. Now." I didn't. Instead, I poured a cup of Shelby's terrible drip coffee and stood on her tiny balcony. Watching the morning unfold like a slow confession, there was peace in my silence. By 9 a.m., Dad's tone had shifted. "We should talk. We can come to an understanding. No need to involve anyone else." Translation: you scared us. But it was the last voicemail that stopped me cold. "Luna, it's Grandma June." Her voice was quiet, controlled. "I just saw the folder. Your mom and dad called me. I had no idea it was this bad. Your grandfather would be heartbroken. I'm coming to Eugene tomorrow. Don't talk to them until we speak. I want to help make this right." I nearly dropped my phone. Grandma June had always played neutral ground. She sent birthday cards and holiday fruit baskets. She'd never chosen sides. Until now. Shelby walked in holding her own coffee and a raised eyebrow. "So, they found the folder," I nodded. "And apparently, Grandma June did too." She let out a low whistle. "Your mom must be having a meltdown, according to Ivy," I said, scrolling through the texts. "Dad's threatening to sue me for defamation. And Mom's trying to reach every cousin we have to explain her side of the story." Shelby smirked. "Good luck spinning receipts." Later that day, I received a text from Trent, my cousin from Seattle. "Just saw the file you left. Luna." We all knew something was off, but no one had proof until now. "Proud of you." For the first time, it hit me. I wasn't the villain in their version of the story anymore. I was the whistleblower, the truth teller, the one who finally broke the silence. And silence is how abuse survives loss. So no. I didn't feel guilty. I felt relieved. That night, as I repacked my suitcase to stay with Grandma June temporarily, Shelby hugged me tight. "You didn't just stand up for yourself. Luna, you started something. A reckoning." I smiled. "And it's just getting started." Grandma June's house in Salem felt like a time capsule, knitted blankets on every couch. A cookie jar shaped like a cat. And the faint scent of lavender and old books in every corner. But when she opened the door that afternoon, there was nothing soft about her expression. She hugged me tightly, then said, "Come in. We need to talk." The moment I stepped into her kitchen, she slid a folder across the table. "I went to the house," she said plainly. Your parents are in full damage control. Ivy's crying. Your mother is calling it a generational misunderstanding. Your father, she paused, isn't saying much. She pointed to the folder. But what I found proves they've said far too much for far too long. Inside were documents I hadn't seen, account statements, legal forms, and a trust disclosure letter from my grandfather's lawyer dated 10 years ago. The truth unfolded with brutal clarity. There had been 2 education trusts set up for me and Ivy when we were born, equal in size and protected under our grandfather's estate plan. I blinked. I thought mine was lost in some market crash. June's eyes narrowed. That's what they told you. The reality: your mother requested executive access to your fund when you turned 18. She convinced the trustees that you weren't mature enough to manage your own finances. My stomach twisted. They've been using it, haven't they? June nodded. To pay off debts. Ivy's tuition. Even their anniversary trip to Cabo. It wasn't just theft. It was a full-blown betrayal wrapped in the language of parental guidance. I ran a hand through my hair. Heart pounding. Can we do anything? June leaned back. We already are. The lawyers filed for emergency reassignment of trustee authority. You'll gain access to what remains of your fund. And we're requesting a full audit of all withdrawals over the last 5 years. It was surreal, like I was watching someone else's story unfold. But this wasn't fiction. This was my life. And finally, someone was taking it seriously. Later that night, as I helped June prepare dinner, she asked, "What are you going to do next?" I paused, wiping my hands on a dish towel. I want to move forward. Finish school. Start my own life, not one built on guilt or obligation. She smiled gently. Then that's what we'll do. From now on, you choose who gets access to your story and your heart. And just when I thought the day couldn't twist again, the doorbell rang. Ivy, standing on the porch, eyes red, clutching a manila envelope. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. Part of me wanted to turn her away. But another part, the one that still remembered tea parties and sleepovers and childhood whispers, opened the door. "Come in," I said. Ivy sat at Grandma June's kitchen table like she didn't recognize the world anymore. She clutched the manila envelope to her chest like it might protect her from the truth. Her eyes were puffy, her usual confidence completely stripped away. We sat in silence for a moment. The hum of the refrigerator, the only sound between us. I didn't know. She whispered. I raised an eyebrow. Didn't know what? She looked up at me. Eyes glossy. Any of it? That you were paying the bills. That Mom and Dad were taking from your account. That the tablet they gave me was yours. Her voice cracked. I didn't know. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But part of me had learned not to trust so easily anymore. They always told me you were okay with it. She continued. That you liked helping. That you didn't care about birthdays or celebrations. That you were different. Different, I said. Like invisible Ivy flinched. I thought you liked being the responsible one. She said, her voice smaller. I thought that's just who you were. Me Yaf clenched. I was responsible because someone had to be. Because while you got second and third chances, I was the safety net. I know that now. Ivy said, opening the envelope. Inside was a stack of cash, $800. I got a job this summer. As a teaching assistant for a kids' art camp. I wanted to give this back. For the tablet. For everything. I stared at the money. It wasn't about the amount, it was about what it represented. For the first time, Ivy wasn't being handed something. She was giving something back. I leaned back in my chair. Why now? She looked down at her hands. Because you're the first person who ever told the truth. And because I'm tired of pretending everything's fine when it's not. We sat for a moment, both of us sifting through years of hurt that hadn't even begun to heal. I wanted to study art education, Ivy said quietly. But Dad said it was a waste of money. He pushed me into majors I hated: business, law, accounting. I failed because I didn't care. And every time I messed up, they bailed me out, while bleeding you dry. Her eyes finally met mine. I'm sorry. And for once, I believed her. Because this wasn't the Ivy who shrugged things off or blamed the world. This was a girl finally seeing the system she'd been born into and recognizing the wreckage it left behind. I didn't forgive her right then. But I nodded. You want to make it right? Yes. She said. Then start with you. Go back to school. For what you want, earn it. Own it. And stop pretending our parents' silence is love. She wiped a tear. Deal. And just like that, a new kind of bridge began to build, one made of truth, not obligation. 2 days later, the reckoning arrived on 4 wheels and with far too much noise. Grandma June had just returned from the grocery store when the screech of tires announced their presence. My parents? They stormed out of their car like they still owned every room they entered. Luna, my mom, shouted from the porch. We need to talk as a family. Ivy froze beside me on the couch. They followed me. I didn't tell them where you were. I swear. It's okay, I said. Already on my feet. They were always going to find their way here. Grandma June stepped onto the porch first. Her tone was calm, but sharp enough to slice concrete. You are not welcome here. Uninvited. My father scoffed. This is a family matter. No, she said, holding up her hand. It became a legal matter the moment you started stealing from your own child. My mom's voice turned desperate. You don't understand. June. We were just trying to hold the family together. By tearing Luna apart, she replied, Inside. Ivy sat stiffly, watching from the window. They're unraveling, she whispered. I nodded. They always were. They just thought we wouldn't notice. A few minutes later, flashing lights pulled into the driveway. The officer stepped out slowly, greeted June politely, then turned to my parents. I'm going to have to ask you both to leave. The homeowner has requested no contact. My dad turned bright red. This isn't over. Luna, he was right. Because just as they got in their car, another pulled up a black sedan with tinted windows. Grandma's lawyer stepped out, holding a briefcase. Notice of emergency hearing, he said, handing my parents an envelope. Reassignment of trust management, audit request, and a preliminary civil review. My mother's jaw dropped. You're suing us, no! I said from the doorway, I'm holding you accountable. They didn't reply. They just got in the car, slammed the doors, and sped off without looking back. That night, the house felt strangely quiet, not heavy clear, like the storm had passed, and we could finally breathe. Ivy sat across from me, still clutching the legal notice she'd peeked at. So, what now? I exhaled deeply. Now, we rebuild. Not just our lives, but ourselves. That week, I moved into a small studio apartment in Corvallis, one of Grandma June's rental units. Modest, sunlit, and mine. Shelby helped paint the walls. Ivy helped unpack books. And across the hall, a guy named Ethan lent me a screwdriver and a crooked smile. I wasn't just restarting. I was redefining what family, home, and worth really meant. And this time, it wouldn't be something someone else handed me. It would be something I built for myself from the ground up. 1 year later, I stood in the middle of my studio apartment, surrounded by laughter, candlelight, and the smell of fresh pasta. It was my 24th birthday. Shelby was pouring wine. Ivy was setting out salad. Ethan, now more than just the guy across the hall, was adjusting the Bluetooth speaker, playing one of my favorite indie playlists in the background. Grandma June sat at the head of the tiny dining table like a queen in a floral cardigan, eyes twinkling with quiet pride. And me, I was exactly where I wanted to be. I raised my glass for a toast, smiling at the circle of people who had shown up for me, not out of obligation, but out of love. 1 year ago, I said, I spent my birthday packing a suitcase in silence. I didn't know where I'd sleep that night. I didn't know who I could count on. And I definitely didn't know if walking away was brave or foolish. I looked around the table. Turns out, it was both. And it was worth every step. The glasses clinked. Ivy smiled across the table, more grounded now than I'd ever seen her. She had re-enrolled in college and was thriving in her education program. The sparkle in her eyes had shifted from entitlement to purpose. A month ago, she'd handed me a check. Luke? Ling. I saved every penny from my TA job. She'd said, I know it can't fix everything, but I want to start clean with you. I hadn't taken the money for the debt. I'd taken it as a symbol. She finally saw me as more than a backup plan. The legal case had been settled quietly, with my parents removed as trustees and held accountable for misused funds. They never admitted fault, but they could no longer touch what wasn't theirs. Mom still sent the occasional voicemail. Families fight. Luna. But we still love you. But I'd stopped needing that kind of love, the kind that only shows up when it's convenient or useful. Instead, I built a new definition of family. One rooted in honesty, in effort, in showing up when it matters most. After cake, Grandma June pulled me aside and handed me a small envelope. Not a birthday gift, she said. More like a legacy. Inside was the deed to a tiny cabin in the Cascades land my grandfather had once dreamed of turning into a retreat. It's yours now, she whispered. A place that belongs only to you. I didn't cry. Not then. But when everyone left and the apartment was quiet, I stood at the window and let the tears fall of joy, of relief, of arrival. I used to think walking away from my family meant losing everything. But the truth, it gave me back myself,